The problem with these two things, not having boundaries and not prioritizing self-care, is that it puts the onus back on you as far as what you're struggling with that is blocking your purpose. This puts the onus on you to feel bad about yourself. That's all this is. Burnout is a platitude and an excuse for you to feel bad about yourself. However, there's nothing, quote, wrong with you. That's not what we're talking about today.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
So today I want to talk to you about a tool that I use, that I've created to help you understand your own sense of self-purpose. When I've asked what it is that you're struggling with the most, a lot of you say a sense of purpose. I get that. Having a sense of purpose is so important. And I don't even know if we understand just how important it is. Let me talk really quickly about what I believe to be a dirty word, which you've heard me say many times, and it's burnout. The kryptonite to burnout is purpose. Yeah, absolutely. If you have purpose in your life, if you are excited and you are passionate about something that you do, you have purpose. That doesn't mean you're going to wake up every day, jump out of bed and feel like a superhero and just like take off, right? Of course not. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days and you're going to be struggling. You're going to have issues with what it is out there. And this could be anything. This could be a relationship. This could be your vocation. This could be running a household. If you have purpose in what you're doing, whatever it is that you have decided to do, I don't really believe you will ever get burned out, right? Now, what is burnout? People tell us all the time, burnout is you having a lack of boundaries. Burnout is you seemingly not prioritizing self-care. Again, self-care is another dirty word. The problem with these two things, not having boundaries and not prioritizing self-care, the problem with this is that it puts the onus back on you as far as what you're struggling with that is blocking your purpose. It puts the onus back on you rather than you looking at the situation, the neutral circumstances that are around you. This puts the onus on you to feel bad about yourself. That's all this is. Burnout is a platitude and an excuse for you to feel bad about yourself. However, there's nothing, quote, wrong with you. That's not what we're talking about today. Instead of giving ourselves an excuse to beat ourselves up because we're struggling with an issue, I have what I use as a tool. It is called the Self-Purpose Workbook. And this will lead you through what I have outlined as 8 steps to find your self-purpose, at least right now, in the things that you're struggling with. Now, this is not like, oh, let's go find your self-purpose, your purpose in, life, woo woo, and all of this magical stuff, right? This isn't magical thinking. This is based, again, in science, neuroscience, and neurobiology, along with behavioral and social sciences and positive psychology and all the other things that I have studied. What I want you to think about is something that you love, that you are passionate about, that you are now feeling burned out on, or something that has potential for you to get burned out on. Because the kryptonite is purpose. And so I want to talk about the specific purposes in specific circumstances or issues or situations. Today, we're talking about your purpose when it comes to the kryptonite needed to counter burnout. In your workbook that you can download, you're going to see what I have identified as 8 steps. Now, they could probably be put together in less steps, but I'm going to say 8 right now, just so I could walk it through and you understand exactly what I'm talking about. The first one is for you to identify what the issue is that you either feel burned out on, or there's potential for you to feel burned out on, losing energy around something, whether it's a relationship or a job or a hobby. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you could be struggling with right now that to you seem urgent. So you need to write a list of what these issues are, the circumstances, the situations, the relationships. Is it the job? Is it, running a household? Is it finances? Take a look at whatever the issues are. Write them all down. You probably, like most normal human beings, have more than one. Write them down. And in the PDF, there is lots of space to do all of this work. Figure out what the top issue is that you're feeling burned out on. So these are the things that you write down. The second step, if you will, is write down what the outcomes are that you hope to gain, as in, what is the result that you hope to get when it comes to this particular circumstance, situation, issue, relationship, whatever? What is the thing that you want, but you're not achieving? That's an important thing. So for each of the issues that you have identified in your life, 1 or 10, what would you rather have as the outcome? Whatever that outcome is, it can't be something you're apathetic about or you've already made decisions about. Like, you've decided you hate the color red, so you're just no longer going to wear the color red. Well, you've made a decision, so you're not struggling with that anymore. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about issues that are in your life right now. What are the outcomes you would hope to achieve? The third step would be, what is standing in the way of achieving those outcomes? And list all of the things that you believe are standing in the way of achieving the outcomes that you would like to have. Often when we talk about what is standing in the way, we immediately jump to what's wrong with us. Now, here's a second opportunity when we're talking about purpose to beat yourself up. That's not what we're doing here. Okay. You don't get to write down all of your failures. What are the things though that do create the negative thoughts in your head around the issue? Let's say you're struggling with maintaining a job that you love. You're in a vocation, you have what you think is a perfect opportunity, and you have a coworker that makes your life miserable. The circumstance would be this coworker standing in the way or being a barrier in your mind for you achieving the outcome that you want. Now, maybe that outcome is just going to work at a job you love, doing stuff you love, feeling like you're contributing to the world and being happy, making your paycheck. You just want to feel like you're contributing to society and using your gifts and skills. And every time you're at a meeting, there's somebody there that's constantly making your life miserable. Now, we can focus on that as a barrier because regardless of whether it's somebody else's fault or not, whether you've played a part or not, the external circumstance is causing you to think you hate going to work. That's the point. We want to find something in your life that you're not trying to get away from, you're trying to solve for. So that's the list. And typically we want to look at external circumstances that are hindering what we believe to be the outcomes we desire. And when there are lots of, or even one big external circumstance that is getting in the way of our outcomes, our desired outcomes and our desired results, that can start to take us down the road of what ultimately looks like burnout. You need to look at the things that you feel are out of your control. The people, for example, I'll share a simple thing with you. I really struggle with living with 3 guys that don't like to pick up after themselves, right? And that's hard for me to feel like I'm being successful running a household. Every time I look around, there's mini bags of open Doritos everywhere and my son sneaking goldfish into his room. It's just, it's so annoying. And the trash, and I mean, it's not a lot, but it's, you're walking around and you see a discarded bag of mini Doritos, and that's annoying, right? So my desired outcome is to have a tidier house without, somebody coming over and there happened to be a discarded bag of Doritos. My external circumstance that I cannot control is the fact that I tell my kids all the time, clean up after yourself, throw stuff in the trash, and they don't do it. And ultimately, I can yell and scream and threaten and take stuff away, but I cannot make another human being do what I want. I mean, as a parent, I have a lot of strategy and tools and techniques. So I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but the truth is I cannot make another human being do exactly what I want them to do. So that fact alone, which is a fact, if you go back to my previous episode where I broke down the 5 steps of the model that is really the main tool that changed my life that I'm certified in teaching, 2 big things that are part of the definition of facts when it comes to the model. Number 1 is your past, because you can't change that. Number 2 is other people's actions, other people's words and emotions and what they do and what they say, because we have no control over that. What they do is a fact. We can have opinion about what they do, which is our thoughts, but the fact remains that what other people do is what other people do. That can be proven in a court of law. So part of the definition of facts are other people's actions, what other people do, say, think, feel. Like, we have no control over other people. Yeah, I mean, I'm being hyperbolic here, but I cannot force other people to do what I want. Now, there's a lot of stuff that might guarantee 99.9% of the time they'll comply, but it's not 100%. It's out of my control. I just hope that I raise kids to listen, and mine do, which is great. So what is the thing that is external, not going on in your head that you're using to beat yourself up because you're failing or whatever? Leave that alone. Just kick that to the curb with a pair of steel-toed stilettos, okay? That's not what we're talking about. I want you to list around the issues and the outcomes you've just listed, what external barriers there are right now you feel are out of your control that are standing in the way of the results or the outcomes that you have just listed. My famous Bob Bear coworker, right, who growls at you every time you're at a meeting because of gosh knows why. Maybe you remind him of his, I don't know, step grandmonster who stole his inheritance. I don't know. There's an external circumstance that is getting in the way of something you love and making you feel like your outcomes and results are thwarted. The 4th step And you'll see this in the workbook. I've created some rating areas for you. I want you to rate the issues you've written down on a level of urgency. So on one end of the spectrum, you have urgent. It's something that you're really struggling with right now and you really want to solve. And on the other end, it's not urgent. It's something you're struggling with. You'd really like to solve at some point, but it can wait. Now, if you just identified one, you can skip that or you can rate it. But if you have multiple, then I want you to rate them. First, identify the top urgent issue. That way you're just working with one right now, but you can do this with all of them. So identify what is most urgent to you and what is least urgent. And then we will prioritize those issues. The next step, the fifth step, is what are the stakes? So when it comes to the issue, the barriers and the outcomes. So you need to ask yourself now the question, what are the stakes? What will happen? What are the consequences if you continue to allow these barriers in your life to stand in the way of the outcomes and the goals and the results that you would like to get? Then ask yourself, what is at stake if you no longer allow these things to block your desired outcomes? So that's two different lists there. The first one is what is at stake if you continue to do what you're doing or getting what you're getting? And then what is at stake if you did not allow those barriers to continue? Just use your imagination right now. We're not talking about the how or the why or the this or that. Just imagine what life would be like for you and this issue if you, number one, kept doing what you're doing, kept getting what you're getting. And number two, if somehow you could change that, you stopped having the external barriers and blocks that were keeping you from doing these things. Now, yes, some of this might create internal thoughts about yourself, maybe behaving in a certain way, which in the model, that's our fourth step is the action, right? So we do things, we contribute to our result, obviously, but look at the external circumstances because that's the most important thing for this exercise. This is about the circumstances happening around you that are blocking you from feeling like you are achieving the outcomes you would hope to achieve. Your next step, this is the burnout piece. This is the what. So when you take an honest look at these issues that you're struggling with, which of them do you still have energy and excitement around when thinking about them free from these external barriers? If you could wave a magic wand right now and all of these external barriers and blocks and things standing in your way just vanished, would you still be excited about the thing without thinking about the how? Just imagine all of those things vanishing and you achieving the outcomes, the results, the feelings, whatever that is, sense of accomplishment, sense of contribution to the world. Because when you wipe away all of the stuff that is making you feel like you're not achieving, you're not contributing, you're not achieving goals, sometimes that will help you identify whether you still care about this thing or not. That's what this step is about. If you feel the sense of high energy and excitement, then you need to create your list. Which of the things that you're struggling with right now that you've identified as urgent, where the stakes remain high, which of these things still generates energy and excitement in you when you can think of your desired outcomes without any kind of interference? The things that you have no control over in your life that are so frustrating around your dreams, around your most amazing relationship, around how you wish your family functioned, Maybe there's some dysfunction there and you wish that things could be different. The outcome you want is to solve the problem, right? So the seventh step is make this list, and it may still just be one thing, and that's great. So I would take the top thing that has come up, or if you're still working with just the one issue, that's what you're working with. So you've identified what the issue is, the external barriers that you feel are keeping you from your desired outcomes and results. And you still believe that you have energy around this thing, which means you still care, right? And when you think about those external barriers dissolving, the things that are standing in your way just poof, vanishing when you wave that magic wand, you get excited, right? Because this is the thing that you love. If it weren't for other people or situations or external circumstances, you would be happy doing this thing. If you can identify the thing that you are so excited about, that you have energy around, that you could just fix a couple of things, wave your wand, and these things go poof, you would still be very happy doing it, then that's your thing. That's your number 7. So wave those magic wands here for a little bit. Pause if you need to, or grab that PDF and follow along. Okay. So you have 7 steps. The last step is what I call the self-assessment. Once we go back and remember that we cannot change other people's thoughts, feelings, actions, or words, what can you think, feel, do, and say to regain your own agency in order to remove what's blocking you from your desired outcomes for yourself, for your results? What is it that you can do to achieve the outcome? A lot of times, if we're in a relationship that we really struggle with, but we want to maintain, maybe we intentionally choose to do the heavy lifting. I've been in relationships like that. I have a family member that I absolutely love and want to be in a relationship with. We don't understand the way the other's brain works. It's very hard for us to talk about anything that isn't light and fluffy because we just misunderstand each other all the time. And that's frustrating. But I want the relationship. The relationship is urgent. What's at stake for me is if I don't do the heavy lifting, I lose the relationship, and I don't want that. It's too important to me. And I choose every time intentionally, as best I can remember, to do the heavy lifting, to listen, to give the benefit of the doubt constantly, to work very hard to understand. I ask a lot of questions so that I fully understand what's being said. And if I get my feathers ruffled, I've been training myself over the years. I'm very good at it now, to pause. One of my favorite quotes is pause when agitated and doubtful. That's a wonderful quote. I've been training myself to not pop off, and I don't do it perfectly. As you know, I'm a freezer and a fawner. So, I'm not a fighter when I feel stressed out or anxious. So I rarely, say ugly stuff back because I'm usually blindsided when someone says something ugly to me. I never expect it. I'm going to be 50 soon. I'm starting to creep up there. I don't think this is ever going to change. I don't have the good witty comebacks. Never going to. But I have been able to change my neural pathways, the ones that I have created that are concrete. You can rewire those neural pathways that you have trained over your life through your experience. When you start to do repetitive, different behavior, you actually rewire those neural pathways. So I have been practicing, and you practice over and over and over, and you're going to be terrible at it in the beginning. That's okay. You have to replace behavior with other behavior. You have to rewire one pathway by creating a different pathway. You can't just not go down the pathway. That's not going to work. That's like, looking for water back in the day, and one pathway is dangerous, but your options for finding water are down another pathway. But just by refusing to go down the dangerous road does not get you closer to water. You're just stuck there. And maybe because that pathway's familiar, you know what's down it. You don't know what's down the other one, but you have the potential to find water. Maybe you just take the route that's comfortable, hoping, whatever the danger is is down there won't be lurking that day. That's not how this works. Not with your brain. We have to do something different. So that is what this self-assessment is. Maybe you need to start focusing on what you think about the circumstance or the situation, not what other people think. The more that you boost your own belief and confidence in yourself, the less likely you will care what other people think. But again, that takes practice. That's going down one pathway that's unknown. And then slowly you get used to it, right? You find the waterfall, you find the water source, and maybe it's complicated and you get lost several times, but eventually if you keep trying, you make it easier. And of course you're going to stumble and make mistakes. The self-assessment is you fully understanding that people think, feel, do, and say. You have no control over other people. So if you go back to the stakes and you continue doing what you're doing, which is hoping other people will change, doing things, trying to get other people to change, that is never going to change your outcomes because you cannot force other people to change. So if other people changing is on your list of barriers, if only this person would change, you're not going to get a different outcome because 99.9% out of the time, people don't change. People show you who they are. They tell you who they are. A lot of the time, the things that upset us about other people or upset you about other people, most of those people don't even know that they're doing it. You cannot change people. That is the self-assessment. Are you trying to change others? Are you trying to get people to behave a certain way? Are you trying to get them to do what you want them to do and behave in a manner that you want them to? Because people are not doing that. They're not going to. You can try all day long and I wish you luck, but it ain't happening. It's not happening. If it does, fantastic. Somebody's on your level. They hear you. You've articulated yourself and your issue well, and it worked out. But most of the time, people don't do anything we want them to do, ever. If you've identified something that you love, that you have outcomes for, that there are external barriers for, that you still have energy around when you imagine those external things being gone, that is your purpose that you are struggling with. That is the purpose of the thing you don't want to lose, you don't want to let go of, is something you have put your all into and you want to succeed. However, when other people start misbehaving, right? Not behaving how you want them to behave. And I'm going to do another episode about that. That's called the manual, right? We have a manual in our brains for how other people should behave. And often we don't even tell them what our expectations are of them. But when they don't meet our manual's expectations of them, we are mad. So we'll do a whole episode on that. So stay tuned. The problem with expecting others to change is that we start getting frustrated. We stop engaging. We feel bad about ourselves that we're not succeeding. There's all these things that begin a process of disengagement. We feel like we have lost our purpose. We feel like we're not contributing. We feel like we're not being heard. And it's possible it's just the Mr. Bob Bear criticism in a meeting because the guy's a jerk and he's never going to change. And you can go home and ruminate all day long about that and create those neural pathways of what are you doing wrong? And why doesn't he like you? Blah, 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 blah. Or you can begin to do the incremental thought change. You can begin to be aware that you intentionally cannot change his behavior. You can begin to understand that whatever his thoughts are and his criticism is, it doesn't matter because it's not real. Is there a kernel of truth in there that could be helpful? Or do you just want to thank him for his input and keep going because you love what you do? That's what I'm talking about. If you can maintain your level of purpose, why are you there? What are you doing there? In the relationship, at the job. What are you doing there? That is your purpose. If you're letting external circumstances be barriers to your happiness, doing what you love, you will end up feeling mirrored symptomology of what people like to call burnout because you get sick and tired of listening to, Bob Bear and his criticism. You get sick and tired of telling kids over and over again to stop leaving trash on the floor. You start the thoughts, the incorrect, non-factual thoughts that no one's listening to you, that you're not appreciated, la, 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 la. And we start beating ourselves up. We start going down this path that we think we're entitled to of all of this poor me, poor me, poor me. You have to maintain your own sense of agency for yourself. You have to. You have to learn this work so that when somebody criticizes you and you have been practicing creating new neural pathways, it begins to become automatic that your first thought is, wow, your brain just spit a bunch of non-factual stuff at me and you thought it was a good idea to share it. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. But your thoughts are just your brain generating words and you decided to share them. So my argument is that you don't get burned out. You lose your purpose and other people and external circumstances is basically what beats it out of you. And you let them. I did for a long time. I kept poor me, self-pity. Behavior wasn't okay for me. But I stayed trying to get other people to change. And in the end, I learned people aren't going to change. And so if my outcome was to be happy at a job I was very good at and everybody was being ugly and I couldn't change them no matter what I did, I couldn't satisfy them. I couldn't make them happy. I couldn't convince them to stop their nonsense, but I stayed trying to do that, right? And that's the problem. In my vocation, that's my passion. I love what I do. I loved what I did. loved it. I couldn't stand the external circumstances that beat my purpose out of me. Now, if I had done this work early on, I could have kept my sense of purpose despite all of the nonsense happening around me. Early on, if I had learned that all of the criticism and all of the just dumb stuff that I dealt with wasn't real, it was, words generated in brain matter, et cetera, I probably would not have let so much stuff get to me. So when you're in a situation where you feel like you've lost your purpose and you're getting burned out, that's the problem. And you have to get your purpose back. So you have a PDF, go through those steps. You have to identify the issue. You have to figure out what those outcomes are that you're not getting, decide what the stakes are if you continue what you're doing, or if you don't, if you change things. And if you waved a magic wand and got rid of all that stuff, would you still care about the thing? If so, that's important. That's a purpose. And what is it that you can do to take your own agency back? Different thoughts, different action, different feelings. What can you do to maintain that purpose? And remember that you can't change other people. So without changing other people or external circumstances, what is it that you can do? All right. So grab that PDF, do that work, and feel free to leave me comments anywhere on the channel, or basically at Charlie Hornis Coaching is my handle just about everywhere.